Hey Kyle.
Hi, Kyle. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm glad you could join me. This is kind of a new podcast setup that I have, so hopefully everything runs kind of smoothly.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll start off. So you're with the band Jade Elephant. You are the bassist, Kyle Tenove.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we could just start. You could kind of give us an overview of like how did the band start? Like what's the history for you guys?
The three of us have known each other for, I've known Mitch, well, I've known about him for a long time, but we've played together for 4 years now.
Okay.
And then Taylor, same thing. I've known about him for a long time, and we've played together in other projects starting about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we played together in another project, and we would, all three of us are kind of session player, sidemen type guys who get hired to, if an artist needs a band, we can back them up. And so we've all kind of done that in different capacities.
Hmm.
And yeah, we just kind of decided we wanted to start something new, fresh together, and kind of just start a new chapter in the book of your musical journey altogether. So
Right.
in late May last year, so 2024, we launched Jade Elephant after much deliberation on the name and kind of what direction we were going to go. And yeah, so that's kind
Oh,
of the general story.
yeah. So Jade Elephant. So it sounds like, maybe you had other band names. It kind of took you a little while because I'm in a band and the name seems to be a little bit of an issue sometimes. It's like actually getting like, something that sticks. My philosophy was always, people just forget what the band name is. Like Red Hot Chili Peppers or something, they have the band name and then everybody just doesn't even think of it when they say it. So were you guys satisfied with Jade Elephant?
Yeah, I mean, we went through a long time because, like you said, it doesn't, once you're going, the context isn't necessarily about the name, it's about what the band is. Because, I mean, there's a zillion bands like that. If you really think about any band, it's kind of, the name probably isn't great.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
but I
know,
mean,
like,
people they just gloss over it after, you say it enough times. But I like the name Jade Elephant. I think that's pretty cool.
thanks. But yeah, it took a long time. We just really molded because it's also feels really important before you start. You're launching a brand essentially, right? So you're
Hmm.
kind of going, would this work? Would that work? We had a couple kind of rules in the naming. We didn't want the something because we've all been in bands with the something. And what we found a lot of the time was with promotion, they would miss the. So then
Right.
you got to go back. And so we're trying to streamline things like that. We really wanted something that was 2 words. And yeah, and something that was memorable. And we were really focused on Jade for a long time. We had a couple other combinations with Jade, and then Taylor suggested Jade Elephant, and we were actually at a residency at a recording studio, OCL, just outside of Calgary and Langdon, trying to work this out. We kind of locked ourselves in this studio and said we have 3 days to finally decide the name because we had a huge list.
Hmm.
And then I was unsure about it. I was like, I don't know, with the animal thing, I don't know.
Right.
And Mitch was on board, so two out of three of us were on board, and I said, let me sleep on it. And I woke up the next day and I wore a green shirt like I'm wearing right now. I came
Hmm.
out in a green shirt and I said, I agree. So
Okay. Yeah, I think that there's something it kind of takes a load off the mind when you finally decide on, the band name or like what direction you're going to go in, because it's kind of that middle ground of like not knowing exactly what to do,
yeah,
whether it's with the name or it's like with the style of the band. I think sometimes when you're in that groove and you're like, okay, this is what we want to do, because like for you guys, so you're a very like blues rock kind of band. So was there deliberation about, what direction you would go in, or did you all kind of just settle on that pretty quickly?
um, that's an interesting part of it too, because we played in previous projects that had like a blues rock feel. So I think that's kind of innate with all three of us, especially Mitch and myself.
Hmm.
The blues rock thing. Like Taylor's incredible at it, but I wouldn't say that he listens to blues rock as his main genre. He likes like heavier music, and Taylor Miles, the drummer.
Hmm.
And So Mitch and I definitely are more probably innately driven to the blues rock, but what we've just kind of worked on as we're moving on, like so we've got three single, or now actually, sorry, we have four singles out and an EP, and we're walking up to our debut LP. We've kind of honed the sound over the time that we've worked on these tracks because we started working on these tracks before we even had the band name.
Hmm.
Like we already had these kind of worked out and some of it kind of demoed and recorded a little bit. So there's still the blues rock element, but I think what we're trying to do now to widen the sound as we're moving forward is to combine the blues rock thing, but not necessarily follow the blues form rules and get more into like really concentrating on the songwriting in the context of rock, which includes blues, but
Hmm.
then not being tied down by kind of traditionalist or like nostalgia. Like like often people go, "Oh man, you guys must love Led Zeppelin." Yeah, we love Led Zeppelin,
Right.
but we're also not trying to copy that. You can't be Zeppelin,
Right.
right?
Because
So
that's
many
kind
bands
of,
have tried.
well, what comes to mind is Greta Van Fleet
Hmm.
is I think they kind of got a bad rap, I think, because they wore their influence so heavy on their sleeve. They're like a new rock band, but they sound almost exactly like Led Zeppelin. And
Hmm.
then there was part of the issue was they wouldn't say that Led Zeppelin was a big influence either. So, you
Yeah,
know,
which like for me that soured me because it's just like you got to be honest about your influences and I mean like whatever. I don't know Greta Van Fleet at all, but that's kind of how we felt. Like that was an example for us, like a kind of a lesson
hmm.
because it's just like yeah, we love that. Like I grew up like the first song I ever heard like when I was born, my dad played Whole Lotta Love by Zeppelin as like he
Mm.
did it as a like on purpose. Like when they brought me home the first day, he like cranked it on the stereo. So like I have, starting from when I was born, I have a history with Zeppelin and I love playing it and all this, but it's okay to be influenced by it, but we don't want to replicate it and we want to kind of maybe blaze our own trail.
Right.
Um, but with respect to the influences, like we love Hendrix too, and we love, like we do a Deep Purple cover sometimes, and like we love that older rock, but we're trying to kind of modernize our sound a little bit in our direction in the hopes that we can kind of not reinvent the wheel, but keep building the cart, I guess.
Yeah, I think that when you kind of take a multitude of influences, so like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, maybe Cream or something, and you kind of put them all in a pot together, it's going to come out different. And I think that it will sound similar to the influences, but it's always going to have your own little personal spin on it. And I think that especially like in a band where everyone's jamming together, it's hard for it not to go in a new direction because everybody's bringing in their influences. Like the drummer might bring in like a beat that was from a different kind of song or something like that. So I think it's difficult to like completely steal from the past. But that's kind of one of the interesting things about rock nowadays is like a lot has been done. Rock has been around for 60 years or whatever. So it's like, how do you push it forward? How do you find something new?
Yeah, and well, I mean that's exactly, and I think it's in the songcraft. That's the whole thing is like if you can really just focus on the song instead of just the riff.
Mm.
Like that's kind of the trick, and it's a balancing act because it's like we all love riff rock too, but
Hmm.
I think I think moving forward that's just kind of the goal because we want it to be a bit more like have a bit more depth than maybe just us doing a blues rock thing. Like I don't know.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard. Sometimes it's just kind of it's a unreachable goal, but it's just like you have to keep setting those kind of those rungs on the ladder higher and higher and higher. Otherwise, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I think, a lot of artists, they go through eras, they have their, one phase and then they go to another phase. You look at David Bowie and like how long his career was, and
Yeah.
he just, reinvented himself so many different times. So, but then there's also that balance of like, well, if you as a band are known for this, and let's say your first album becomes the one that everyone loves, and then after that, it's like, well, you want to move to different, pastures, but people keep wanting to push you back to like what you originally started as. So I don't know. There's a lot of
Hmm.
tensions in like creativity and artistry.
Yeah, and you can never predict what's going to happen anyway, so it's just kind of it is what it is.
Yeah. I noticed on the site you said that you were influenced by some Canadian rock bands like Big Wreck and April Wine. So what are your thoughts on, Canadian music? Because, growing up, people might not know that in Canada, 30% of the music on the radio had to come from Canadian artists. So I
Right.
felt like I was also very influenced by like April Wine and Rush and all these other Canadian bands. So do you think that that played a role in your songwriting?
For sure, yeah. I think it's kind of a funny thing that I don't think I knew until I was a lot older, until I was trying to get songs on the radio. I didn't know the CanCon rules of having that percentage of Canadian content because it always kind of blows my mind that in other countries they're not necessarily aware of like the Tragically Hip
Hmm.
or like yeah, I mean April Wine. Like we got to open up for April Wine. I think it was a year before Miles passed,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was like yeah, with one of our other projects, and it's just like yeah, I don't know. That music is just a part of growing up in Canada, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we played with Harlequin and Big Wreck last summer, and it was just like well, like I've heard these songs forever. Or people sometimes are saying you guys really remind us of Triumph, which I thought was so funny because I kind of forgot. Like, you hear because you hear them on the radio, but it's like Triumph was a power trio, a Canadian power rock trio. And if you look at a picture of them, we actually look kind of similar
Oh, okay.
as
Very
people,
interesting.
just playing different instruments. But it was like, yeah, a huge influence. And I think
Mm,
there's a lot of internationally, people don't realize how strong Canadian rock was. I mean, yeah, Rush is a perfect example.
hmm.
Rush is like, I saw them twice growing up, and like the influence Geddy Lee has on my playing is huge. I still like I don't know how he does most of the stuff he does. And
Right.
I've been playing for a long time and
Yeah.
I've played some of his licks, but watching his hands, I'm just like he has a thing that nobody else has.
Yeah, I think I'm not certain, but I heard that he kind of simplified bass riffs for when he's singing. So when he's singing, like, the riffs are simple and then it kind of gets complex when he's not singing. Because I think multitasking is very tough, doing something
Oh,
complex.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And and then his singing's incredible. So it's
Hmm.
like yeah, what a
Yeah.
combo. But yeah, anyway, long story short, Canadian rock is a huge part of influencing all three of us because yeah, you hear it all the time. It's in the air.
Yeah, but I think like growing up, the radio was so big, that's where you heard everybody. And then nowadays, most people I don't think find new music through the radio. And from what I've heard, a lot of radio stations are now owned by a few companies, so it's very hard to like get your stuff played. So I think like, are you guys focused more on like Spotify or something like that, like streaming services?
Um, it's both. Like I think so there's different kinds of radio, right? Like commercial radio, which is your kind of on the FM dial, the ones like you're talking about that are owned by, there's only a few companies that own these multiple stations. They're definitely harder to get into and to get radio play because they're playing popular signed artists
Hmm.
because that's really what their their job is. But on the other hand, almost every university has a radio station. And in Alberta, we're really lucky to have CKUA, which is actually the oldest radio station in Canada.
Mm.
It might be North America, I can't remember, but they have been incredibly supportive of our journey since the get-go. We've done interviews, they've played our tracks. We even charted on the CKUA chart. We've charted for university and college radio. I mean, we've had a couple songs on commercial radio, but that it takes a lot of work to make that happen, a lot of emails, a lot of connections. And so I think we probably actually spend more time focusing on the radio, but the reason why isn't necessarily to get them to play us, hoping for, your big break or whatever. It's more about building those relationships because a lot of the programmers in the public radio, which includes like the university, college, CKUA, those type of radio stations, are music lovers and curators, and they're all connected to other things. Because
Hmm.
like musicians in Canada who often have to do more than one thing within the, even if it's just within the music industry, teaching, booking shows, management, marketing, social media management, so on.
Hmm.
Those radio folks are the same. So a lot of like CKUA hosts, for instance, are also you might be artists themselves or they're curators for festivals and so on. So I think we spent a lot of time connecting with that because it also just is really meaningful for us to connect to real people. Whereas with streaming, you're kind of throwing something into the ocean and hoping it skips. Like
Right.
you're not really having that engagement through that. And we've been really fortunate. It's gone really well through streaming for us as a new band. But I think that's also in part to our social media presence, which we like. We're pretty hardcore about our social media because it's a marketing tool.
Yeah. And do you feel any kind of, because sometimes creatives really don't like the marketing side. They just want to make the music and the art of it. But then I think to grow as an artist, obviously you do need to market yourself and you do need to find connections and network. But it sounds like the actual meeting of people who are fans, who will really appreciate the music in real life, like that must be kind of a nice thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like as an artist, and I think most musicians, like, yeah, I'd prefer to just be playing all the time and not thinking about anything else,
Mhm.
like marketing or managing the band or scheduling meetings or whatever. But yeah, the reality is you have to work hard at it. Otherwise, who's going to hear your stuff? Like
Yeah. I
that's,
mean,
you
yeah,
know,
the unfortunate thing is, there's millions of really talented artists out there, but
yeah.
like if nobody hears it, then nobody hears it. And, it's not really worthwhile at that point. I mean, it's fun to make art for the sake of art, but I think also getting that connection with a real live person, and building a fan base, like that's, part of the fun of it as well.
Yeah, and it's a great way to market shows and, fill those seats so that you can have an audience. Like it's a necessary evil. Do I enjoy it? Probably not. But I know
Hmm.
that I
Right.
have to, along with the rest of the band, like the three of us split up the responsibilities and that's a big part of Jade Elephant is the infrastructure behind us that we're like, all going all the time. We use apps to make sure everybody has tasks. We have a group chat that we communicate through every day. Like there's all kinds of behind the scenes stuff that, you know, I like the idea that some people might think we're just like, oh, they just, they wake up late and they strap on their guitars and they're, set up their drums and get their bass out and they just jam and come up
Mhm.
with all this stuff. But the reality of it is it's, we're in the mine,
Yeah,
we're
right.
mining away,
No,
trying to get it together.
it's hard work, right? And but hard
Mhm.
work pays off.
Yeah.
And so, I guess it's kind of easy to, join a band and then you kind of like, spend your time just, making a few songs, but you don't really put your mind and heart into it. But like, if I think you do see dividends the more you put into it, you
Yeah.
see a return. So, and I was wondering, so is there any kind of like ego clashes in the band or do you guys get along really well or?
Um, I don't think I mean, all three of us have egos for sure.
Right.
We like to keep them in check. And I think the three of us, like I said, we've played together for quite a while and we've traveled together, we've toured, we've done all kinds of things together, we've vacationed together, we've, yeah, we've stayed in, hotel rooms with not very much space, just the three of us. And you learn how to, you learn how to balance that relationship in a way that's positive for everybody. And I think I can speak for all three of us where it's like we've become such close friends and like there's so much love between the three of us that if it does get, if there's a confrontation or whatever, we've taught ourselves to be really diplomatic. Like I think we're we're really good at taking care to not upset the others, but our communication is so direct. It's not like we ever sweep things under the carpet. Like it's all out in the open. If somebody has something they feel they have to say or have a disagree in any way, and that can be in all layers of the band from the marketing, the branding, to the songwriting, to the performance, and we're all like our own worst critic. So
Hmm.
it's we just take it so seriously. So it's like sometimes, we know when we make mistakes and we know when we're wrong. And I'm really proud that I'm a part of a band that all three of us, I think, look upon that the same way. And we're all able to say sorry, which is key.
Yeah. Well, I've heard, a band is kind of like a marriage. And,
100%, yeah.
the thing that kills a marriage tends to be resentment from, what I've heard in studies and stuff. So, building up resentment towards anybody else is not good. I think, being able to freely speak your piece and then, kind of you all can figure it out. The fallout of whatever an honest opinion is, I think that that's important. And I think honestly, like it does work so much better when everybody's friends too.
Hmm.
Like when you genuinely like hanging out with people, because I've been in other bands where, would I have hung out with people, if I wasn't in a band with them? And probably not, maybe some of them. So I know like the band I'm in right now, we're very protective of, the vibe and everything. So bringing in
Yeah.
somebody new, you want somebody that really meshes. Um, so so your latest EP is so far was the one from 2024, right?
Yeah.
So how did you choose the covers that you did on that one?
Actually, that's a good question because we had this idea. Um, like we had the three singles that are the studio recordings on that EP because it's a 6-song EP.
Hmm.
They were already released because we were doing these advanced singles to introduce the band, well, to the world, but like,
Right.
get stuff out on streaming so people had something to listen to. And we thought, we'd like to maybe throw a cover in there, but it's really hard to do a cover in the studio because you're always going to be compared to the original. So unless you do
Hmm.
something that's really polar opposite, you're yeah, you're kind of swimming upstream. It's really hard. So what we did instead is we recorded a performance we did at the Blues Can in Calgary, which has since moved. It's the location we did this recording in has been demolished,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of strange
Hmm.
because it wasn't that long ago we recorded it. But we tracked the entire show. Now that whole show was three 45-minute sets.
Hmm.
So then when that was done, and the engineer that night was Graham Torn, who's incredible. Always does sound for us at the Blues Can. And he recorded it and then said, I'm going to do a quick little, just clean it up a little bit, and I'll send it to you guys and you can take a listen. So then the three of us listened to the entire show, which was awesome to hear back. And we actually, it was Taylor. We kind of tasked Taylor with, okay, pick your top 6 tracks that are in the show
Hmm.
from the whole thing, because it would probably be about 32 songs. And so he went in, he gave his suggestions, and then we said, okay, we're going to whittle it down to 3. So we listened through, and we just felt like those covers, number one, because they're live, the performance was solid on them for us. Like we were happy with the performance because we scrutinize that like crazy. If it doesn't sound great or if there's really like a glaring mistake in it or something, we're
Hmm.
not going to release it. So yeah, we just really liked the sound of them and the energy behind them, and we felt like Funk 49 and You Keep Me Hanging On were both kind of representative of what we were starting to do, especially with the vocal harmonies, which was like a new thing we had been working on with You Keep Me Hanging On, I think was kind of the catalyst for us improving that and blending better with Taylor and I doing backup vocals to Mitch's lead vocal. So yeah, and then Bad Thing was already a studio single on that. And we thought it would be really cool to have that end the EP with a live version of it, just to kind of show like there's these studio versions of the songs, and we hope people really like them. But if you come see the show, this is what we end up doing to things,
Mm.
which is, leveling it up and, probably playing it faster and with like in that version on the EP, the solo instead of being maybe 20 seconds is probably like 3.5 minutes.
Right. Because I think when
And we're improvising.
you're playing it
Yeah.
live, you're so full of energy, and you kind of follow where the song wants to go. Whereas I think, in the studio, it can sometimes end up, depending on the band, be a little sterile. Like if you like overwork something where it kind of
Yeah.
like you lose a little bit of maybe that high intensity emotion to it. But yeah, I think that like having the, jam band live kind of thing, as well as the actual like recorded studio stuff. I think that that's kind of an interesting mix.
Thanks. Yeah, it was kind of like it was a risk in a way because it was like radio won't play live tracks really. Um, and yeah, we just wanted to see what would happen, and the feedback was great. So we were really excited about that because then yeah, it just kind of shows like we really the name of the game for the band is we want people to come see it live.
Hmm.
So it was great to sell that, to people who are far away from us, who can't necessarily see us play, every 2 months in Calgary or 3 months in Edmonton. We only really travel in Western Canada right now. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have any plans for doing like a bigger, like extended tour or anything like that?
Hard to say right now. Like we're really focused on Western Canada, like really on BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, just because of, again, we're a new band and traveling costs a lot. Um, but that's not to say we're not open to things happening because you never know. We've applied to lots of festivals and stuff that are outside of that, but we're still learning how to run with this band, and I think the we have big dreams, but
Hmm.
you have to be realistic while you're planning these for now, and then yeah, we'll see what happens after the album.
Okay. And so I was wondering if you have any kind of influence by the sort of like psychedelic rock scene in like Australia, I know is really big. And like, do you kind of have any impetus to like bring in, some more like psychedelic elements or anything like that into your songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, Mitch is a huge Tame Impala fan, like, and I think likes that whole kind of like he's definitely more into that or the most into the psychedelic rock thing, and I like that flavor. Like even he just got a new pedal. Um, I can't remember what it is. It's like a phaser with
Mm.
chorus. Anyway, it's incredible. Like and him adding even just that soundscape into the songs is really cool. And like we tease him about it because he's got a new pedal and everything. But I just think he's got such incredible ears, and he knows how to kind of he hones tone so quickly,
Mm.
and I like that influence into the songwriting and adding a bit more space and maybe atmosphere into things. We're currently writing for album number two with some of that in mind for sure.
Mm.
Um, that more modern psychedelic rock, yeah.
Okay. And are you pretty comfortable with staying a trio? Are you thinking of, bringing anybody else? Like, would you ever consider like synth or something, or is that too far outside the realm of what you do?
Well, we've talked about it before. Not necessarily bringing in a permanent member, down the road, who knows what what we'll feel about it. I think for now, it's so great being a three piece. And we can create a lot of different sounds with our instruments without having to bring another person in. And then you, like kind of what you talked about earlier, Kyle, was like you can cause an imbalance and like a power dynamic issue
Hmm.
if you bring somebody else in new, and this band is balanced really well. So I can't say in the near future we will look at that, but I think the closest thing we've had is on our some of our recordings. Our producer Russell Broom has played a little shaker.
Okay. A little bit
And
of
that's
shaker
the
helps.
furthest we've gone. Yeah, like Taylor's played shaker, Russ has played a little shaker, and and we trust Russ with our lives. So, it took that's as close as we've gotten to adding anybody else doing anything.
Yeah. But the sky's the limit in the future. You
Of
never know.
course,
You know, um, Even, maybe you want to like add a saxophone or something at one point, who
you
knows,
never
right?
know. Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
I won't say never.
yeah, that's fair. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up around here. So it was
Sure.
really good talking to you, and love your stuff. It sounds pretty cool, and I wish you a lot of luck in the future.
Thanks so much, Kyle. I really appreciate it. And thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
All right, for sure. All right, have a good one.
You too.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.